The day it disappeared was the day it was healed.
YOLO Composing Gloves here, and this is a video that is going to summarize the next basically 10, 11 videos actually, so that you can skip straight to video 12 if this is all you want to know. All these videos, all these topics are covered in more detail in the next 11 videos if you want to know more. But a lot of people, I feel, can go right to 12, which is really where we really start mixing. So I'm going to try and cover everything and pretty much a couple just basic ideas about how each one goes. That way you can move on. These topics only exist largely because when I was getting my degree in recording technology, mixing was obviously a very large part of that, and all of these things came up and sometimes took up multiple class discussions, and we were asked various questions about them and why you would do things a certain way. And so that's why a lot of these videos exist as they do currently. It was just trying to head that off. And so in the process, I sort of put mixing off till around video 12, so that's why. So anyways, we're going to jump into this. So we have mixing set up. If we're skipping, but what is mixing? Mixing is just you have a lot of sounds, you have multiple sounds, and you're just trying to put them together in the best way possible. It's like if you were painting, there is like the child painter who doesn't really have a concept of what colors would mix well together versus the very sophisticated professional painter who has a lot of opinions about how they mix together, what things mix together the best, if you should choose one type of paint over another type of paint, should you mix, colored pencils with paint, or I don't know. You just have a lot more ideas about how things should go together. And mixing is pretty much the study of this art. And so because of that, it's a very broad-based topic that has a lot of opinions, and there's not really too many facts laid down, but there are some generally agreed upon good guidelines that if you obey these guidelines, you will be successful in mixing and accomplish a sound that is truly yours and is an art. So when we start, we say, okay, there is the good rule, and then there's also this thing called the 3 rule. You may have heard these before, but they're just good to know about. The good rule is, the good rule is, if your recording is good and your songwriting is good and your MIDI sequencing is good, and good, you're going to get something good at the end. And if you're lucky, you'll even get something great. Sometimes good things put together in the right way can give you a great thing, but it very rarely happens the other way around. And so you always want to make sure that you don't compromise anywhere. If you compromise somewhere, you put your project at far more risk. And when you're starting, you kind of have to compromise. So your goal is to just build up as many good things as you can as you go. The other way it is often phrased is you can't polish a turd. So you might have excellent mixing, but if your songwriting is just bad, or the singer you're working with is just not good, or the group you're recording is brand new and so they're just not that great, don't set extremely high standards for this. Just know about the good rule. The other rule is fast, cheap, and quality. You can have any two. You can have it fast and you can have it cheap, or you can have it be high quality and be cheap, but you can't have that last one. So if it's high quality and cheap, it's going to take a long time to do because you're trying to be as cheap as possible. Versus like fast and cheap, you're going to have a hard time getting quality out of there. And you just don't ever want to find yourself in a situation where you're demanding of yourself all 3 things. Most of the time, especially when you're learning, give up fast. Go for cheap and quality. And if you give up 2 and go straight for quality, that's like obviously probably the best scenario as far as like in depth, the amount you'll take away from a project. So 3, needed gear. There's not that much. You just need a digital audio workstation, something you can mix in, something you can record with if you intend to do your own recordings. And that's pretty much it. And also a solid pair of headphones. We could argue about speakers in a room and all that stuff, but you can do professional work with just some headphones. So don't feel like you need to go out there and break the bank. These are a pair of M50s Audio-Technicas, and they are excellent. You'll hear lots of people refer you to them. Sennheisers are great. There's lots of different ones. If they're your first pair of like headphones you're going to use for professional work, or what you would like to use for professional work, I don't recommend spending over $200. I'd stay 200 and below. There are some pretty good headphones that are 300 and above, but you're getting a little into the overkill range. You can find totally reasonable stuff at a lower price. I do have a price like lower limit though. I would not spend less than $100. If it's less than $100, something's pretty sketchy. If you see a really well-known brand that's got a great deal going on, or you're buying a pair of used headphones, just be aware. There's also this idea that headphones have to be broken in and that you should put noise through your headphones for a while. This risks permanently damaging your drivers if you do it improperly. And it's kind of just, there's like some reasoning to it, but it's largely just BS. If you talk to most people who work in studios, no one does this. So at least no one I've talked to. There's the occasional people, and most people have heard about it, but it's just one of those things. So don't overthink it. Just get some good headphones, and you can always replace the drivers and the ear cushions around them. I would also, when you're buying your first set, you're probably going to want to go a low impedance if you intend to work with a laptop. You'll see these little ohm ratings on the side. You want to watch out for anything that's got high ohm ratings because that's meant for studio use. They're going to be dealing with headphone amps versus if you're just plugging into your laptop, you need some low impedance ones. So that's the number you should be looking out for. And just make sure they feel comfortable because you're going to be wearing them for a long time. And I had a pair of headphones that they fit over my ears okay, but because they bent them funny, it just really hurt over a long time. So make sure you got some good headphones. Honestly, that way your ears can hear what you want to work with. And the other thing about headphones is the headphones you pick should be able to fully represent whatever you're doing inside your DAW. Meaning if you make like a little boost at 40, let's just say 100 hertz. So you put maybe a 3 dB boost there, and there's clearly frequencies there. So there should be some sort of a difference. And you don't hear anything. Either your ears aren't trained enough to hear it, it's being masked, or the headphones aren't representing properly. Sometimes headphones don't have that exact precision. And so you want to get one that you can definitely hear them. But again, the big thing is just make sure they sound great and there's something that you feel like you could get great results on. You're probably going to use other people's testimonials. I vouch for the M50s. A lot of people will. And when I was going to school for this, I tried on a ton of different headphones. And honestly, you begin to realize all of them sound different. So you just need to learn what yours are going to sound like. They all sound different to a degree. Even one pair of M50s to another, you'd be quite surprised. And how far they sit off from your ears will affect the amount of bass buildup. So we have open back headphones and closed back. There's arguments for both. I use closed back. You'll generally see closed back more often just because it's a little more private. But open back technically has some arguments that are really good for it because they avoid the bass boost problem from a closed back. So anyways, there's a bunch of things to consider when you're looking at that. That's how important sort of considering headphones are. But I mean, if you just buy a great pair and a reputable one, you'll be good to go for a while. So anyways, that's the gear you should really have. DAW, something to mix, obviously, if you're making your own music or get some music. There are free stems online you can get, something to practice with, and then just make sure you have a decent pair of headphones. So that's the gear. So there's this idea of mixing prep that a lot of people just skip over, and it's actually a pretty important stage. But in general, basically, if you just walk in and you just start doing sort of whatever occurs to you, maybe you're just like, oh, I'm just going to start producing or whatever. It's not going to be a very effective session, and it's not going to be very directed or have a goal. And so you're just going to have your results will be a lot less aimed for, and you'll just accomplish less. So what you want to do is you want to say, okay, I'm going to work on this song for so long. And then before you come in for your mixings, let's say you're like, okay, I've gotten to the point where I want to consider mixing as like a separate thing. Because there should generally be a point where you say, I'm going to mix this song now. And before you do that, you want to go and sit in a quiet room and acclimate yourself to your environment. Because if you're listening to a lot of loud music, that's going to affect your psychoacoustic perception of what it is you're doing in your DAW. This can sometimes be good if you're trying to emulate someone else's sound, but you really want to set yourself up. And you also want to just avoid general problems like having to get up and use the restroom, eat a little bit of food, so that these things all play a role in just the zone you're in. Just make sure you have all these things taken care of. That's pretty much it. A lot of people don't point out prep is an important part. Like prepping properly, I notice big differences between when I have properly prepared and when I haven't. And if you were to go and pay money to rent a studio, like $100 an hour, you better believe you're going to take prep more seriously probably than if you were just doing this in your room or in your home studio or wherever you are. And so where's the difference here? It's the perceived value. So just because you're not spending money to perhaps do it wherever you are doesn't mean that you shouldn't take time to properly prepare for it. So anyways, there's that. So there's this other idea. So we're on number 5 now. When to stop creating and start mixing. So if you're just mixing a band you recorded, usually this is a lot more clear cut. But if you're producing while you're working, you're going to be doing some mixing while you work because you have to in order to continue creating. So during this process, you might be going, when do I stop creating and mixing? It's kind of this fuzzy line. My recommendation is there's definitely no point where you stop creating and there's that whole I'll never finish the project. But there should be a point that you set apart after you've gone through quite a bit of the creative stage, maybe you have most of the song done, where you start mixing. And it's a separate session. It should not, well, it could be part of this session where you're creating, but basically you get up, you take a break, and you come back and you're gonna mix, and that's your focus. And when you do that, you'll get totally different results. I know a lot of people who this is so blurred that I don't think they know what kind of results they can get because they've never tried it or they've never done it consistently. So I had to do it probably 20 to 30 times before I really started deciding whether or not I wanted to do it for a particular track. Because there are some tracks where a separate mix down phase, it'd probably benefit from it, but it isn't necessary. Maybe it's like a track for a game or something. A lot of times those tracks just demand less. But if you're doing like you really put your heart and soul to this EDM track, you should have a separate mix down phase. And you should just, after you've gone through a large portion of it, set that time aside to do a separate mix and just focus on the mixing. You'll also find creative things that occur to you during that time. Either write them down, you can address them then, but the big point is have something where you do mixing separately because that'll cause you to take all your faders down and reconsider every move you've made. Oftentimes, you'll find yourself making entire songwriting changes. I do that all the time, and usually it's to great benefit. So that's my 2 cents on the whole when should you stop creating. The answer is there's this thing, but just make sure you have a spot where you're actually mixing. Let's not blur it so badly we can't even tell. So that's mixing. Mixing's role in mastering. We're on number 6. How much can you change in a mix? You can change everything in a mix. I get that question for some reason quite often. A lot of people PM me about this. They're like, oh, how much do you think this is like enough? And usually it's people who work with clients. So if you're working with a client, you have to clear it with the client first. So you have to ask, can I add parts to this? Can I take away parts? And usually people are game for hearing what you did. So if you want to create a mock-up, but don't become attached to it because they might go, no, I hate it. And you got to leave it alone. But if you're just producing for yourself, have no regrets in completely tearing apart something you don't like. Just make sure you save a version of it. You definitely want to be saving versions. Like this track, Chug Chug, it has like 7 or 8 different versions at various stages because I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep where I was. Almost always, I continue forward with the new direction I've chosen, but I'll save them. So I have like a pre-mix stage where all my faders are pretty much at unison. And I know this looks like unison, but in FL, things work a little differently. There's a lot of options for faders, and you see there's automation in this track everywhere. So it's not totally fair to just look at my mixer and go, oh. But anyways, that's the whole how much can you change? Don't be afraid to tear stuff up. When I was new, I was terrified of throwing away my idea because I thought it's my idea, it's valuable. But you got to understand one idea leads to another, and usually it's an evolved form of your previous idea. So don't be afraid to throw away previous ideas. Keep them, and maybe you can use them somehow, but don't be afraid to move on and completely make radical changes to whatever it is you're working on. Mixing's role and mastering. Another one I get, especially when people want me to master their stuff. So they always ask me like, oh, do I send you the stems or do I send you the WAV file? The answer is you send the WAV file. But what mixing, I get this, people completely misunderstand what mastering is and what mixing is. Mixing is making your song sound as great as possible, just like we said at the beginning. Mastering is clearing the headroom off the top of your track and preparing it for its final professional state, the thing that's going to hit the market. So this is a genre thing. Mixing for all genres has the same goal. Mastering can vary. So for example, let's say you're writing a classical piece of music. You're going to mix it very differently. There's a lot of dynamic range in a classical piece of music. If you're mixing a piece of EDM though, there's going to be very little dynamic range. And the perceived headroom will be different. So we're going to talk about headroom in a second. But basically, when you're mixing, you can't go past 0 dB because of, if we're working with digital audio, 0 is the ceiling. So the idea is just turn up whatever it is you're listening to and mix to a lower level. So I'm sort of getting ahead of myself here, but basically you want your mix to be peaking around 6 dB. And this means that later on during your mixing stage, if you want to turn the kick up a little bit, because you've mixed, maybe you didn't have your strings in at the time or whatever it was, you have the ability to do that. It's available to you with no cost to hitting a ceiling. You'll be able to do that dynamically. It'll be preserved by the headroom. That's the whole point of the headroom. And then mastering takes away that headroom, and then mastering is the art of squishing the top basically to make it as loud as possible is sort of what it's come to these days. But in reality, it's supposed to make it as like the squishing should not be perceived as let's make it as loud as possible. It should be perceived as we're accomplishing a certain timbre that causes you to sound more professional. And this squishing, what it does is it increases the perceived loudness. And generally people who hear things that are louder consider them to be better. It's just the way we're built. And there's actually a lot of countermeasures that have actually been implemented in things like Spotify where they'll actually do, they will turn down tracks that have a higher loudness level. And there's all these different things we could talk about in that realm. But basically when you're mixing, you should mix to around -6 decibels, which is right here, 6 dB. I picture -6 because it's below 0, but we generally don't call it -6. We just say 6 dB. And so here's like a track, and this one's been mastered. But if I take off the mastering like it is now, you'll notice I definitely have things that are above 6 dB. And there's reasons for why I did certain things the way I did. And that's stuff you'll learn later on in this series because that's now we're talking about mixing and why I would do something over something else. But like, here's the beginning. And you see, we're very clear. I got all this headroom, no problem, but there's like nothing going on. So let's get over to like some drums and stuff. So you see I'm peaking, like that one hit -2. I know I've got a few things that I think actually go all the way up to 0. But so I have 2 stages to my mix down. So I do my creative stage, get all my creative stuff out. I usually toss most mixing ideas out the window. I'm being creative. Then I come back and I do the mix down. And during the mix down, I aim for -6, sometimes even -9 decibels. You'll be fine. The noise floor won't climb up. Digital audio has an enormous noise floor if you know about that stuff. So you don't need to worry about noise creeping up, even at that low of a level. Even 16-bit audio, you're totally safe. And so you're able to you're able to close the headroom at the mastering stage with no loss in perceived quality. There are some other things that come up. But basically, yeah, you want to make sure that you're down there. That way when you do the mix, you get the whole, you're able to freely change things without the consequences of hitting it. Because once you've hit the ceiling, once your kick's too loud, then you want to bring up your strings maybe to counterbalance it. Then your strings, before you know it, are hitting the ceiling, and all these other things are hitting the ceiling. So most people will tell you -6 decibels is just like what people generally recommend. But I usually I'll go during my second mix down phase. So I'll have this middle creative stage where I'll make sometimes major adjustments to the track and I'll completely change maybe the sound design or something. And then I'll come back and mix it again. And on this mix down, I will mix it according to I will at this point, since I've already got my stuff in a ballpark headroom, I'll mix things up. Then I'll throw my mastering chain on it, which if you're mastering your own stuff, so I'll make it sound as good as possible, but maybe there's a particular part with a snare drum I'd like to come up. And I don't care if it hits the roof because I like how that sounds. And because it's in the mastering stage, it's the final product. So I know exactly how it'll come across. And so I'm able to do things like that and create shining moments in the track. And so that's sort of my process. That's the one I found I get the best results from. Yeah, your opinions may vary. I usually go with whatever the client wants as well. So if they want me to go about it some other way, I'll do it the way they want me to. So anyways, that's mixing's role and mastering. Hopefully you get the idea. Mixing, make your song sound as great as possible. Mastering, just prepping for the final stage. I have people who have tried to tell me mastering is mixing and mixing and mastering. I don't know how they got this messed up, but that's how it is. So what levels should my mix peak at? We already talked about this. -6 decibels, lower -9 if you want to be safe. I wouldn't go down to -12. That's you could, I guess, if you want to, but -9 is going to give you plenty of headroom. And that's just a big deal. And you already understand that now. Should I clip? So anyone who's into digital audio, you know about this whole bit depth thing. And if you're really into it, you know that mixers and DAWs actually have more. The bit depth is actually larger. I don't want to get into the technical difficulties here, but because we're using floating point numbers, a lot of really interesting things happen. One of those byproducts is you could totally clip a channel inside your mixer and it has no consequences as far as like actually hitting a ceiling. But when it goes out your master, it is going to hit a ceiling eventually. So I'm against the idea of doing this because a lot of people say, oh, you could just turn down your channel just before you send it to your master. That's a common argument. But then you're like completely sacrificing the point of turning up your faders. Propellerhead has a video that, I believe it's Propellerhead. They had a video talking about this specific thing and they give a lot of reasons for it. So some people are good for it. They think it's a great thing. There are reasons for both ways, but I generally recommend you don't want to clip unless you're doing it intentionally and you know how it's going to come across. This is something that's actually kind of a big deal with a lot of sound design. Sometimes clipping off the channel the way it does is a big deal. So generally just avoid clipping, but if you see it, it doesn't mean like the world's going to end. This has ruined the track. If you're mixing someone else's song with pre-recorded stuff, that holds a little more true to an extent. But if you're doing like your own sound design and things, there's a bunch of curious situations that pop up that we'll talk about later in the series. Basically, you don't want to do clipping, but there are, I feel like you would be like lied to if you didn't know that there are situations where clipping doesn't matter, kind of. It still matters. Just go watch some of these videos and you'll see sort of the debates over why one versus the other. And then some people are like totally like they might even say it in the comments in this video, like you're dead wrong, you should never clip, and they'll give their list of reasons. Valid reasons, go check out the other videos, hear out those reasons. I'm with you on that you generally just shouldn't clip. That's just my opinion. What level should I mix at? We have talked about this. I think I meant to write what level should I listen to my mix at? This is a common one that a lot of people probably aren't even aware they might be doing wrong. So when you're mixing, there's the level that's in your DAW, and then there's the level you're listening at. So what I do is I will play a sound at 6 decibels. Whatever sound I think is going to be the prominent sound in my song. So if it's the vocals, it's the vocals. If it's the kick drum, it's the kick drum. Whatever it is. And I'll play that sound, and I turn up my headphones until they sound as full as I want them to. And it's that simple. That's the level you should generally listen at. Now, if you're looking for a solid number in like SPL, generally it's about 80. No, 75. I used to have like a solid number, I would say. 80 is actually pretty loud. You talk at about 60 to 65 decibels. That's how loud a conversation, like if I'm talking right now, it's about, 60 to 65 decibels. It's where most conversations sit. And you should be able to talk through your mix with someone. It shouldn't be overbearing. Your ears can only take about 15 minutes of loud mixing. So if you're making a song that's meant to sound loud, you want to listen to at a softer level because you're able to mix for a lot longer without your perception of the frequency spectrum getting messed up. So the lows still sound like the lows and the highs and the mids, they all still sound crisp and clean. Your ears can take it. If you listen to it really loud, you begin to have what's called ear fatigue. And this perception of what things sound like, what goes down. If you ever listen to songs in your car all day, by the end of the day, you may notice that your speakers are an awful lot louder. And that's because by the Fletcher-Munson curves, when you turn the volume up, the frequency spectrum becomes more even. And so you turn it up and turn it up and turn it up. By the end of the day, your car speakers are really loud. And then when you get in the next morning, you suddenly find yourself turning it way down. You have experienced ear fatigue. Your ears have gotten rest and they don't need to listen to things that loud to be able to tell the differences. So just be aware of those things. So that's my general recommendation. When you master is when you're going to turn that volume down. And when you master, you're going to do comparisons. You're going to compare it with another song and you're going to turn the volume to the level you think is appropriate for that song. If you use references, references aren't required, but I recommend them. And then on your song, you leave that volume alone and you make your master according to that. There's a lot of ideas about this though. So that's a really kind of simplified one. And that's it. So those are the things that you really should know before you start mixing. You go ahead, skip to video 12, and you can begin on your way to making a great sounding mix. If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe and have a blessed day.